Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
Thank you, Reverend Michael. And I almost ran up here too fast because I'm so excited to be talking about our daily bread this evening. It just fits so beautifully with our whole Thanksgiving feeling and the ways in which it all links together into something I think you'll find is a deeper connection than you might have imagined. It's one of the most beautiful images, I think, in the Bible, is the image of the Israelites who have escaped out of Egypt, and they have gone so far into the desert that they have now used up all of the things they brought with them, all the things to sustain them, all their supplies are dwindling down. And now they're really looking around, and there's really nothing in the desert for them. And so they're really basically moaning and complaining to Moses to take them back to Egypt. Why did you bring us out here, basically, is what they asked Moses. Why did you bring us out here so we could die in the desert? Better that we were left in slavery in Egypt. At least we had food to eat, you know. And so in the morning, when they awoke, there was this little light, looked like some kind of flake, some kind of desert snow in the desert. And as it turns out, they were instructed that this was actually bread from heaven that had fallen in the night to sustain them. To me, I just picture that beautiful image of flakes of sustenance everywhere, as far as the eye can see. Manna from heaven. What that says to me is fed by God's own hand. And why that should be such a miracle, when in fact that is the truth of all of us. In every moment, we only believe we have created what we have accomplished, that we have done it all by ourselves, when in fact we're using the substance and the sustenance of the very air we breathe that we did not create, of the life force that moves through our bodies that we do not control, that the very life and love that we have comes from an infinite source through us. We only allow it through us when we are in our highest state of awareness. We are here by the grace of God in every living moment, fed by the hand of God. The manna that came from heaven was only good for one day as well. So there was no hoarding. You couldn't hoard it and get a whole bunch of it. You couldn't, barter it. It dissolved. It decayed before the day was out. So you had to eat what was given, what you could gather in one day, and that was what you ate. And you had to wait for the next day, for the next manna to fall fresh from heaven. And so there's a powerful lesson in understanding that not only is it everywhere around, but it is sufficient for the day. And it is given to you with you in mind. Your needs, just what you need, knowing just the right amount, just for you. Jesus uses this beautiful image in the prayer that he teaches his disciples. When they ask him how to pray, embedded in that beautiful prayer is, "Give us this day our daily bread." I can't help but think that the disciples must have felt a visceral connection to their ancestors. Our daily bread, what does that mean? What does that mean to a Jewish boy? It means manna from heaven. It means sustenance. It means everything that I need is given to me that it's all here, equal to the day, exactly what I need. And the other beautiful way that Jesus taught this prayer is he did not teach them to beg for it. We think, give us this day our daily bread is begging God, but in fact, it is an affirmative statement. It says, you give us this day our daily bread. May I remember that. He did not teach them to beg. He taught them to notice what is already all around. Noticing what we already have and feeling our deep gratitude for it is itself the doorway for the next gift to come rolling in. Gratitude is a magnetizing power. It is an energy force. It is, in fact, our deepest connection with everything all around us, through us. And when we feel our gratitude, we have fully integrated the gift. Gratitude isn't something you have to work on. It's not something that you have to work up and spit out somehow. It is, in fact, something that comes up naturally when you naturally feel the deep gift you have received. It is, in fact, almost impossible not to give thanks. And so in this day that we celebrate, tomorrow in particular, this idea of coming together over a meal and celebrating this. Many of you will be part of a Thanksgiving potluck of sorts. You know, as I said, we're having one in Wallet Hall. But you probably are assembling a meal somewhere where you're probably contributing to it. You're bringing something, bringing a side dish and adding to the feast. Our Thanksgiving dinners often include these additions, even though the main course may be being brought by somebody or at the host's home, wherever it is that you'll be eating. But that's a lot like life itself, isn't it? Because none of us are complete unto ourselves. We bring our talents, our abilities, and above all, our love into every space that we inhabit. And when we do that, we are contributing to the great feast of life. We are bringing something of ourselves. We are sharing ourselves. And when we do, what we bring is multiplied and expanded and completes the gifts others have brought into our presence, that we ourselves take part in. And once again, the beautiful cycle of gratitude arises and arises and arises. People are hungry for the nourishment of relationship. We are relational beings. We cannot exist in isolation, really. Some of us may hunger for it for periods of time. As a grandmother who lives with my grandchildren and my son-in-law, my husband, I'm always looking for ways to get away, to go and do something else, have conversation with grown-ups, something. Clear out my space, have my time. But I don't want to stay like that. I love it that my grandchildren are there, and I love it that my husband is with me, and I love it that my son-in-law is there. And so the balance in our lives should never obscure the fact that we really want and need one another, that this is what completes us. You might be planning your Thanksgiving dinner already, right? You kind of know where you're going to be tomorrow or whenever it is that you're going to be celebrating with family. Some families have to negotiate with work schedules and travel plans and families. One family here has Thanksgiving on this day and another family has it over there. So you have to try to negotiate when you're going to have it. You probably know what that's going to be. But I suspect that you care less about what's on the table than who's at the table. Because we're relational beings. And that it's not so much about the food as it is about the family and the friends and the sustenance of the soul. The bread that comes from heaven and feeds us comes through each of us. The big super feast tomorrow that's going to be at the George R. Brown Convention Center. And I often wonder all the hundreds of people that will be in attendance, not only volunteering, but eating together, that everybody eats together. It's a massive feast. But is it really just about the meal, a free meal? I can't help but believe that it's also about the feeling of care of the larger community for all of its members to sit at the table together. We're relational beings. Sharing who we are with one another is Holy Communion. Jesus understood the importance of sharing himself, sharing oneself with one another. He modeled it literally and figuratively throughout his ministry. He was known and reviled at times for touching and putting his hands onto, laying of hands on the lepers who came around him. His holy touch, just the touch alone, healed their ostracism and their unworthiness before their bodies ever accepted the healing vibration that changed their lives. Jesus also is known to have bent down and spit into his hands and made a paste out of the mud to place on a blind man's eyes to heal them. Was it necessary? Was Jesus not capable of waving his hand over him or in the general direction of this man? I would say that it was an added, beautiful, powerful touch. It was a part of the healing, an essence imparted. I wish I was that blind man who had received that paste on my eyes. You? It is a sharing of ourselves that we hunger for. And also, Jesus was into potlucks himself. Let me just say. There are several places in the Gospels. The Gospels don't all agree. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. The Gospels don't all agree. They have different stories and different, some things missing here and some's there and all of that. But all of the Gospels have some account of a miracle multiplication of food, of bread. My favorite, actually, is the Gospel of John. I love it because it's the one that has the little boy. So what it is there's 5,000 people, and Jesus is out in a far-off place out in the desert, and he's preaching to them all, and he knows that the day has gone long, and these people are going to need to eat. They're going to have to eat somewhere. And so he asked his disciples if they brought anything. And they looked around and they said, well, we can't feed these people. We don't have enough for everybody. And he says, well, what do you have? And they looked around themselves, and then one of the disciples brought this boy who had 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fishes. And Jesus says, that'll do. So he says, tell all the people to sit down. And so they all sat down in the grass, all 5,000 of them. And then one can imagine up a little bit higher so everybody could see this little boy giving the only food he had into Jesus' hands. And that Jesus counterintuitively takes these and holds them up and gives thanks for this, and then begins to give to his disciples to break into pieces and share with everybody who was present. After everybody had eaten, after everybody had shared, 12 baskets were picked up afterwards. Ever wonder how that happened? Jesus is a miracle worker, I know that. And I don't think that's what happened. I think the miracle isn't about the bread at all. You see, in the Middle East, nobody foolishly leaves their home and walks anywhere of a distance without a flask of water somewhere and dried figs or some dried meat or some bread or some pita bread into the folds and into the deep pockets of their robes. These are desert people. They walk these miles all the time. Nobody leaves town thinking that they're going to run into a 7-Eleven somewhere. If they don't bring it, they don't eat it. They don't drink it. They didn't come out there and follow Jesus, oblivious to their own needs. They brought what they needed. But they probably only brought enough for themselves. And here's this boy bringing all he had that his mother had probably given him for the day. And he had just given it all away. So when the basket of food is passed to be shared, wouldn't you break into your pocket and take a bit of it and drop it back into the basket and pass it and contribute to the basket as it passes by? How else does 12 baskets get filled except by the miracle that hearts were opened, that community happened, that relationship was more important in the moment than personal need, that maybe our personal need was to share what we have and all of us be blessed. I have proof for that theory. You want to hear it? It's in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 8, verse 17, if you don't believe me. There is a place where Jesus has warned the disciples about beware the yeast of the Pharisees. And so in typical disciple form, they huddle around and they start arguing about what they think he meant by that. And so they start arguing, well, I think it's because of, the Pharisees, just have bad yeast. And then it's like, well, what if I think he's talking about bread, and I think he means because we didn't bring bread, we forgot to bring the bread. I think that's what he's telling us. And he hears them arguing and complaining, and so he says, aware of their discussion, Jesus asked them, why are you talking about having no bread? Do you still not see or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Do you have eyes but fail to see, ears but fail to hear? And don't you remember when I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000? How many basketfuls of pieces did you pick up? 12, they said. And when I broke the 7 loaves for the 4,000, how many basketfuls of pieces did you take then? They answered, 7. Do you still not understand? The opening of people's hearts to one another. That was the miracle. It wasn't about the bread. Sharing who we are is Holy Communion. And we keep coming back for more, for seconds, for thirds. And you know what? It feeds us all. May you take that into your Thanksgiving Day. May you take that into your life. And every time you remember that you got here for somebody else, following somebody else's way, that you know that you're drawing from something greater than yourself. In this moment, everything you need is sufficient for the day. You have received your daily bread. God bless you all.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.